turn off the phone. You might want to bring it for safety, but just turn it off, throw it in your backpack and forget about it. So you're not distracted. So you're out there in the moment, really experiencing nature. Even a 3 hour walk with the phone off is amazing. I can't stress this enough, just how important it is to disconnect and then walk out there into nature and reconnect with ourselves.
Welcome to Wild Development Studio. Join us as we venture into the breathtaking realm of wildlife arts and untamed adventures. With captivating stories from the field and ideas to dive into the visual arts, we'll ignite your passion for conservation. Get ready to develop something wild.
Welcome to Wild Developments. I am your host, Lauren, and today we're talking to Ethan Gallogly, PhD. He is a leader in the Sierra Club, the California Hiking and Outdoors Society, and the Outdoors Club of Southern California. His boots have covered countless miles, including the John Muir Trail, the High Sierra Trail, and the Theodore Solomons Trail, and over 900 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. He was a reviewer for the Wilderness Press Guides, Sierra North, Sierra South, and Yosemite National Park, and has read nearly every book on the history of the Sierra Nevada. His award-winning novel, The Trail, is authentically set on the John Muir Trail. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Ethan.
Thank you for having me, Lauren.
I want to congratulate you. You've won some awards on your novel, The Trail. What inspired you to write it?
Well, I guess I was most inspired by a trip I took through on the John Muir Trail when I turned 50. And the John Muir Trail, if you don't know, is a 211-mile trail from Yosemite to Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the United States. It's mostly wilderness. You cross one road in the entire trail. Took me about 28 days to do. And when I got back, I was just so amazed, so in awe about the trail and the people I'd met and just everything I'd seen, that I wanted to share the experience. And I hadn't thought about a book. I was scheduled to give, or I got on schedule to give a lecture at the college I was teaching at, and that got preempted. There was another speaker needed the time. But, you know, as a professor, you do research, you look into things, and I'd read the history of the trail. I got very into the John Muir Trail. I found out all kinds of things about the places I'd been that I'd never known. And I realized I have enough material here for a book, but I didn't think anyone would want to read the story of my hike. So, you know, I've been leading trips and doing backpacking for 30 years. So I took a lot of the folks I met on trail, fictionalized them, and took a lot of the stories and events from my own 30 years of hiking and turned it into kind of a compelling novel where it tracks the same schedule that I took, but with two unlikely heroes who are hiking the trail and kind of their adventures and their experience along the way. And into that, I weave in the history and background of the Muir Trail. So, you know, readers get caught up in the book, and then they also learn something about the background and history, you know, how this trail came to be.
I love when authors sneak in little nuggets of things that people can learn, because you're wrapped up in the story and enjoying the story, and you're learning at the same time.
Yes, I'm very much the same way. When I read historical fiction or some other book, I love being drawn into the world. I love being drawn into the background and you know, all the details. But you still want a compelling story. You want something to bring you forward. And so in the trail, I've got young Gil, who is anything but a backpacker. He doesn't want to go, but his father's died, and his father's old best friend, he's a former Berkeley professor, is dying. He has cancer, and it's kind of his dream to hike the trail before he dies. And he invites young Gil to join him, and the two of them just they're at odds right from the beginning. It's a disaster, and Gil is trying everything he can to get off the trail. But I did that intentionally because what I wanted was a story where a person who doesn't necessarily love nature, who doesn't necessarily feel comfortable going out in the woods, could identify to some extent with the protagonist, where, Gil is not very likable in the beginning, but he doesn't want to be in nature. And I think a lot of us just have this fear of going into the woods, particularly on a backpacking trip. The logistics, the insects, the day by day hiking. It's kind of overwhelming if you've never done it. And so Gil lets the reader see that point of view as he slowly gets into the wilderness. And so he's transformed through his journey, as is Sid, the older character, but in a different way. Sid is very much coping with the philosophy and the reality of facing death. And so he struggles with that, as Gil struggles with just being comfortable in nature. And the two of them, well, I don't want to give away the ending, but there's both of them undergo transformation through the story.
Now, part of the description for this book, nature is helping us to find what is missing in our lives. Can you give some examples, maybe personally or that you've seen in others, of how nature helps us to fill that void?
Oh, sure. It's tremendously powerful. I mean, for anyone who spends time in nature, and I'm sure just looking at the photos and stuff you have there that you've spent quite a bit of time, when you go out into nature, particularly when you leave the electronics behind, the cell phones and the noise, maybe in the first day or so that you're out there, you're still thinking about all the stuff you've got going on in society. Maybe you've got a meeting coming up or some important, event. But as you spend time, that all quiets down in your head and it becomes meditative, and you really just start to exist. You start to be in nature. You start to see the surroundings. I mean, like the background I have here, this is up at Evolution Lake on, near the Goddard Divide on, in the Sierra. And you just start to wonder at the rocks and the trees. There's a sense of awe and quieting from being out in nature. And this is extremely healing. This is extremely rejuvenating. And what happens is you go out into the wilderness, you spend a few days, and you just come back refreshed and clear and with a new sense of self and value. It's got to be different for everybody. Everybody's going through different things. Everybody has different connections to make, but somehow nature is extremely healing. There's been a lot of studies on this. There are people with, say, post-traumatic stress anxiety who are given a natural therapy that the Japanese call it forest bathing, where you go into nature and you come back less stressed, more connected, more healed. It's incredibly transforming, and that's something I wanted to absolutely capture with my novel, was just how, like Gil starts out, he's very stressed and disturbed and has no direction. And by the time he comes out, all those issues have been resolved for him. And I very much am the same way. When I was in graduate school, very intense. We were studying physical chemistry and, a lot of equations and stuff going on in your head, and just very stressful. And I would take weekends and go backpacking. And, I wouldn't think about anything to do with my research or my work. But when I came back, I was refocused in a way that's just amazing. I mean, you must have experienced this yourself, Lauren.
Absolutely. The hustle culture is so real, and it sucks you in, and you think that you need it, and it's like an addiction. You have to keep going, you have to keep going, you have to keep going. And we don't need that. Like, when you're out in nature, you just have to be, and you are, like you said, you're refreshed, you're transformed, you have new focus, so you come back recharged and refreshed. I left the business world to focus more on my wildlife photography and sharing stories just like this to inspire people to realize we need outside more than it needs us.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the worst culprit in our lives are these cell phones, which, they ping or turn red and your attention is drawn to them. And you don't have that meditation anymore. I mean, you probably know this. I certainly do. Growing up, we didn't have cell phones. And if you were on a long car ride or traveling somewhere, you meditated. You stared out the window and thought about things. And it was greatly refreshing. I mean, I say this now, but I know my children would never put their cell phones down in the car and just look out the window. They're absorbed in some video or something else. They have to be constantly entertained. And it happens to all of us. It's insidious. But when we go out in nature where there's no signal and you put the phone away and you just pay attention to what's in your head and what's around you and you clear that out. I mean, it takes a few days. The first day you're out there, you almost feel this urge to look at your device and you're like, oh, but I don't have it with me, or there's no signal. Um, that passes. And when that passes, it's like putting down some kind of burden and relaxing. And then the transformation happens where you're absorbing everything around you. You're able to reflect on your inner thoughts and you're able to connect to nature. You may sit and just watch a bird by the water, but it's amazing. I mean, it as a photographer, you can spend 2 hours doing that and be completely transfixed. And it's not something easy to explain to people. I mean, that's why I had to write a book in a sense, is to get the reader into into that rhythm of being out in the wilderness. But it's incredibly healing and transforming. I mean, it's the biggest message is just how beneficial that is.
So when somebody reads your book, I'm sure they're going to be inspired to go hiking, maybe even to do the John Muir Trail. What are some ways that somebody can begin to prepare for an adventure like that? And what can they expect when they're out on the trail?
Sure. Well, first I would say do not attempt the John Muir Trail as your first hike unless you've got a good buddy or guide to go with who's experienced and knows what's what, because it's a little too long. And, like Gil in my book, you're going to make mistakes. The first time I did the Muir Trail, I had 30 years of hiking experience, but I had never done a long trail. I'd never been out for longer than about 10 days. And I brought way too much gear. My pack was much too heavy. It was tough. I mean, at age 50, I went in carrying over 50 pounds of gear, which for a weekend trip, yes, you can do. But for something like this, where you're going up and down 3,000 feet a day, that's pretty tough. So I would say to anybody who wants to get started, start with weekend trips. Find some local place that has hiking and camping and backpacking, or even car camping. But go out, take day hikes, get your equipment together, spend some weekends, figure out what works for you, figure out what you need and don't need. There are some excellent forums online. There's some, like on Facebook, there's ultralight backpacking, which will teach you how to reduce your pack weight, because the lighter your pack, the happier you're going to be, right? The less you've got to carry, the more it's just pared down to your essentials, the easier your trip is going to be. And then start doing some longer trips, some 3 days, some 5 day, and then build up to some of these long hikes. I mean, you can go all the way to stuff like the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail, which are months long. I mean, you could spend 3 to 5 months on those trails, but you want to build up to that. You want to start small, get used to it, learn what works and what doesn't. I mean, it would be horrible to go out on a long hike and have never tested your footwear and end up with all kinds of blisters, or have the wrong food or the wrong tent. And, it could be a total disaster. So, in my book, it's funny. Gil brings a lot of the wrong stuff, and it's sort of a point of humor. But it's also on me because when I was younger and even on the Muir Trail, I brought much of the wrong equipment. And I've had to learn over the years how to reduce pack weight. So, start small, go bigger slowly.
I am a chronic overpacker. What tips do you have for somebody who wants to pare down?
So they always talk about the big three. And the big three are your backpack, your sleeping bag, and your tent. Those are the heaviest items most people tend to bring. Now some people bring a lot, too much food or a heavy kitchen. But those three are the big three. So you want to look for a light pack, and you don't have to look too hard. You go to an REI, for example, and pick up an Osprey. Those are pretty light, a couple of pounds. When I started, my pack was 6 pounds, and I didn't think anything about it. I just thought that was normal until I looked into this, and then I discovered that there are sub 1 pound packs out there. You can save 5 pounds by getting a 1 pound pack. So, I mean, that's huge. But the lighter the pack, the less support. So there's a compromise too. When I was out doing the desert section of the Pacific Crest Trail, I had one of these light packs, and I'd forgotten about the water, how much water you needed through the desert. And when I loaded it up with water, it became terribly uncomfortable. And I went back to a 2 pound pack that I had. But I mean, that aside from that, you can go in REI and find an Osprey or a Gregory, one of these lighter packs, and that should do really, really well. The sleeping bag is next. Again, if you get a down bag, a light bag, or a quilt now is very popular. Enlightened Equipment, for example, makes a very nice quilt, but you can get a very light down bag in the 1 pound, 1.5 pound range. They're expensive, but they'll keep you warm and they won't weigh you down. And you just have to make sure you keep it dry in your pack. You can just stuff it into a trash bag, for example, will work great, and they're quite light. And then the tent, you want a light tent. And again, you go into REI, a lot of those tents will weigh 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds for a tent. It's crazy. But there are other brands on the market. I carry a Durston X-Mid, which is you have to purchase it online, but it's a trekking pole tent. It's very lightweight. It's just about a pound, pound and a half. You use your trekking poles to set it up. Big Agnes, I think you can buy in REI, makes a very light tent that I think is about a pound, pound and a half. And those three things, just getting the light backpack, tent, and sleeping bag will drop your pack weight tremendously. And then you can focus on, getting lightweight cooking equipment and everything else. But those are the place to start. Again, I'd start on backpacking light. They have tremendous number of suggestions and people who will tell you, hey, you post what's in your pack, and they'll say, oh, you could replace this, and that. And I've gotten tremendously helpful advice from the folks there.
You mentioned trekking poles. Is that something that you use?
Yeah, always. I'm as I get older and my knees get weaker, particularly on trails like the Muir Trail where you're going up and down so much. Yes. And then, they become my tent poles at night. So I do. Not everybody uses trekking poles, but I find them incredibly helpful.
I was talking to somebody else that uses trekking poles too. I'm going to have to look into that and to that tent. That sounds really fascinating that you can use those poles to help build the tent.
Yeah, I think the website for that one is durstongear.com. But if you just Google the Durston X-Mid, X-MID, wonderful tent. I can't say enough about it. I've owned, God, maybe 15 different tents over 30 years, and it's by far my favorite. It's really, really well designed.
Very cool. Now, you did mention water, and then on the John Muir Trail, because I'm more familiar with the AT, and I know they have certain stops along the way where you can relax, clean up, get some fresh water and stuff. Do they have that on the John Muir Trail?
Well, not like the AT. There's only one shelter, as it were, on the John Muir Trail. There's the Muir Hut, a stone hut actually up at the top of what's behind me here, up near the Goddard Divide. Beautiful stone hut, built in, I remember, the 30s or 40s. But there are no shelters on the Muir Trail. There are no bathrooms. There are no pit stops. You've got to bring a tent. You need a bear can. There are black bears out there. And you stop at streams, you stop at rivers, you stop at lakes. There are plenty of those. And you use a small water filter and you clean the water and you just bring it with you. And I'd say every couple of miles you'll hit water. So it's not particularly difficult to get water on the Muir Trail. It certainly was along parts of the PCT, but not in the Sierra. Sierra has quite a bit of water and very tasty.
Huh. Okay, the first time you used a water filter, was it a little unnerving?
No, why would you say that?
I'm nervous grabbing water from, a lake or a stream and running it through I guess you're putting a lot of faith in that filter.
Well, actually, it's an interesting question. When I started backpacking, not a lot of people filtered. The water was clean. If it's
Oh.
coming out of a spring or out of a river, I mean, unless somebody's polluted upstream or something's died in there, the water is very, very clean and tasty. And I know plenty of people who don't filter,
Oh.
but the problem is, as more and more humans go camping and have poor hygiene, unfortunately, a lot of these streams and rivers have become infected, particularly with Giardia, which is kind of like a little amoeba that gets into the water. And if you get that, you get incredibly sick. And, well, it's very uncomfortable. So these water filters, they're designed to remove the Giardia and other bacteria from the water. They have tiny, tiny microfilters, and you push the water through either by gravity or by pump. And when it comes out, that's all been removed. It's very clean and it's quite safe as long as you use it properly. You don't take the clean end and dip it in the water or something. So no, I've never had any issue with those. I find I've been using them for years now, and they work quite well. And there are a number of very reliable brands. I think Sawyer is probably the most popular among the PCTers. I like Katadine's Gravity Filter. I feel like I'm advertising a bunch of backpacking gear here. I should pull up my book too, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, there's a ton of good stuff out there. I would not be concerned at all about that.
Good to know. My husband got me it's a water bottle filter thing. You put the water in and then push it through the filter.
Mhm.
And I have yet to try it, but now you've inspired me. I will try it.
Yeah, it's probably a Sawyer. And the East Coast, I don't know. There may be more issues with the water, but when you get up in the Sierra with the granite and the rocks, there's nothing above you. So, I mean, the water is crystal clean and sweet and just it tastes good in a way that you forget how good water might taste. So, I mean, it's a funny reason, but it's another reason to get up there is to taste the water. And I've got to say that stream water, particularly spring water or stream water, when it runs over the rocks, just has that mineral flavor in it that, I mean, it's incredible.
Now I'm gonna have to travel out there and try the water. So you mentioned people on the trail, and the more people we have out there, the trail can get a little dirty and things can happen. What are some ways that we can be good stewards of the trail while we're out there?
Well, so it's not the most comfortable topic, I suppose, to bring up, but the biggest problem with pollution in a wilderness area like the Muir Trail is human waste. And people not properly disposing or burying their waste. When you're out on the AT, for example, there are shelters, there are bathrooms. You've got none of that in the Sierra. And so you have to go off trail, particularly away from water. You have to dig a hole and you do your business in the hole. And then the thing that a lot of people don't comply with necessarily is now you're supposed to pack out your toilet paper. And a lot of people just won't do that. It's a little bit gross to put it in a bag and carry it with you. Um, but there are a lot of people who don't do that. And unfortunately, a lot of people who will just, they'll pee by the trail, they'll wipe themselves, and they'll toss a little tissue out there. And so you walk on this beautiful, pristine wilderness, and then you pass a piece of toilet tissue. It's very disturbing. But when you bury the tissue, unfortunately, sometimes animals will come and dig it up and scatter it. And that's how stuff like human waste gets into the water system. So a solution, and it's not for everyone, but I've adopted this and I think it's wonderful. They now make backcountry bidets, like the squirt toilets people use in France and Japan. There's a little attachment you can put on a water bottle. And instead of using toilet paper in the wilderness, you can wash yourself with a backcountry bidet. It's a very lightweight little thing. And you come out clean and you don't end up having toilet paper to dispose of. You just sort of air dry and move on, or you have a little towel to pad yourself with. So it's not, it's a funny topic to bring up. But I would tell anybody who's going off in the wilderness, bring a little TP and get one of these little bidets and try it. See if it's for you. I don't think it's for everybody. But the people I know who've started using it are adamant about it. It's almost like a cult. People like swear by them and love them, and they're wonderful. One exception is if it's a really cold night and your water gets cold, that's when you want that backup paper.
When you can't clean your back country with the back country.
Yeah. Well, you can, but it's cold.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, that's an uncomfortable topic to talk about, but it's so important because, it's something we all do, and we need to teach each other that this is how you do your business when you're out in the woods.
Yes, or you carry like a double Ziploc where you put your paper and you dispose of it when you come out. And some people burn it, but you're not supposed to, because that also scatters it and it's not hygienic. So yeah, it's a funny topic. But it's an important one.
Mm-hmm. Now, what has been your favorite experience out on the trail? Do you have like one highlight moment that sticks with you?
Wow, that's such a challenging question. Um, well, it's probably a mixture of wildlife and just awe. I mean, there have been some places I've hiked into that have been so fantastic that I've just sat down and gazed at it, sometimes for hours, where it's just so incredibly moving. But then there's also the wildlife. I was hiking up near Granite Pass. I came over the pass, and there was a mother bear with two cubs, and the cubs were blonde. I mean, they were almost white, not white, but they were sort of golden blonde. And it was just amazing to watch the mother and the two cubs walking and the cubs sort of trailing off and playing and all this, and just out there. I mean, I just sat down and, I tried to take photos, but I only had the iPhone and they were too far away. But it was just fantastic to see nature like that. I mean, I'm guessing, but I'm assuming that's what got you into wildlife photography.
Oh yeah, because you get to be up close ish without being up close. I have this giant 600 millimeter lens that I take out
Oh,
with me. And
wow.
yeah, and that's how I got that bee picture right there. I was pretty far away from it, but it looks like I was way up close. Yeah, I love the wildlife, and I am trying to make it more normal for adults to talk about what their favorite animal is. So I want to ask you, what is your favorite animal?
That's another interesting question. I'm going to go with those bears. I just there's something about the bears, and if you ever see them, like when they get wet or something, they look like a human being, and they're so intelligent. I mean, I've had bears at night circle my tent and other things, and it's when you look at them, it's like looking at another being, and you just know there's something inside them. They're very interesting creatures. Um, I, I love all those things, though, all of nature. You said you carry a 600 millimeter lens. That must be very, very heavy, though.
It's so heavy. Yeah. Um, I can't carry it for very long when I'm hiking. And one of my favorite spots to go as of lately has been Cades Cove in Gatlinburg. And I went in May of last year and I got to see some baby cubs, black bear cubs for
Uh-huh.
the first time. Love that. It was so addicting. I had to go back again in November and bring my husband and my son with me. And it was rainy that day. I have some pictures of some bears covered in the rain, like you're talking about. And I had no idea that they love acorns as much as they do. And they are up in the tree, and you see the leaves falling before you even see the bear. It's incredible.
Yeah, a lot of times they send the cubs up. The adults get too heavy, and then they send the little cubs up to do the foraging in the trees. And the cubs play. I mean, they're just like children. They play in the same way that children play. It's so. I mean, I have two kids, and I'm watching the cubs. I see behavior that I'm like, my kids did that. It's the same thing. I struggle too. You talked about the lens. I when I sat, I remember not being able to take that photo of the bears. Just, the zoomed in iPhone photo so fuzzy. I ended up getting a Sony. I think we're talking about equipment again, but I ended up getting a little Sony with a zoom lens, and it's a 1 pound camera. I think it's the RX. I forgot the name, but it has a 200 millimeter zoom,
Oh,
which
nice.
is not six, but for backpacking, it's enough. It's enough to get a bird or a bear or something that you see suddenly that's just a little too far away for the phone. So that's been my compromise for photography, and it's worked out pretty well. But, like we talked about earlier, every pound starts to count after a while. And so, yes, I have seen people trekking with I've never seen a 600 on trail. I've seen 400 millimeter lenses. And maybe for people who don't know those, a 600 millimeter lens is one of those giant birding lenses. It's very heavy. I
Mhm.
think 5, 6 pound lens, maybe more, so
I'm gonna have to weigh it
they're
now and
big.
find
I
out.
know. I mean, that's it's serious. But if you're into that kind of thing, that's you need that kind of equipment.
hmm Oh, before we go, because we are quickly running out of time, do you have any plans for more books?
Oh yes, I'm actually working on another book right now. It's going to be a historical fiction of one of the early explorers. I don't want to talk about exactly who and what's going on, but back, one of these guys back in the 1800s who went out and explored the Sierra and some other places. So I've been working on that, but I'm a slow writer. I think it'll take 4 or 5 years before this book is done. It took me 4 or 5 years to write the trail.
Well, if people wanted to check in with you every once in a while and see how you're coming along with that, where can people find you at?
I've got a Facebook site, an author site on Facebook. I've got a website. I think you have the link, ethangallogly.com. And you can find my name on Amazon, for example, if you look up my book or Google it. So it's pretty easy to find me.
Yep, and I'll put the some of those links in the show description notes so people can right from the show click right over and check your stuff out. Before we go, what is one tip that you have for someone that would like to connect or maybe reconnect with nature?
Get out there. I mean, the just do it. Just get out there. So I think there's nature all around us. Wherever we live, there are natural places. You know, throw a tent in the back of your car and go car camping, park at some trailhead and take a hike, depending on your ability and what you can do. Find a friend and then go out and backpack, jump in a kayak, hit a river, whatever you're into, go fishing, but just getting out there. And I would add one little thing to it. Um, Turn off the phone. You might want to bring it for safety, but just turn it off, throw it in your backpack and forget about it. So you're not distracted. So you're out there in the moment, really experiencing nature. Even a 3-hour walk with the phone off is amazing. I can't stress this enough, just how important it is to disconnect and then walk out there into nature and reconnect with ourselves. One of the things I like to say is that recreation, this word, is really recreation.
Love that. That is amazing. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. And until next time, get outside and see what develops.
Thanks for joining Wild Development Studio. We hope this exploration into the world of wildlife arts and adventure has sparked a desire to get outside and connect with something wild. If you have an adventure that's awe-inspiring, don't hesitate to share. Click the link in the description to submit your story to have it featured on our show or be a guest. Until next time, keep connecting to the wild and see what develops. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by individuals during Wild Development Studio productions do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Wild Development Studio or its affiliates. Participation in any activities, expeditions, or adventures discussed or promoted during our content may involve inherent risks. It is strongly advised that individuals conduct thorough research, seek professional guidance, and take all necessary precautions before engaging in any such activities. Wild Development Studio, its representatives, or employees shall not be held responsible for any injury, loss, damage, accident, or unforeseen incident that may occur as a result of participating in activities inspired by or discussed in our content. By choosing to engage with our content or act upon any information provided, individuals do so at their own risk and discretion.